Did you ever imagine a Britain where speaking out could land you in solitary confinement? While violent criminals walk free, Tommy Robinson sits behind bars for exposing truths the system once buried. This isn't just about him, it's about you, your freedom, and who really controls the narrative. In today's video, we uncover how Keir Starmer's government is silencing dissent and why thousands are rising to say, enough is enough. Watch to the end, this might just change how you see justice in the UK.
The Ministry of Justice opposed the bid. We know who's in charge of that. With its lawyers stating that Robinson was isolated following threats to his safety, including that he will be assaulted by other prisoners for kudos. In a ruling on Friday, Mr Justice Chamberlain dismissed Robinson's bid, stating his case was not arguable and that it was not accurate to refer to his segregation as solitary confinement.
Those that are spreading lies and misinformation as far and as wide as possible, they're not interested in victims, they're interested in themselves. Those who are cheerleading Tommy Robinson, not interested in justice. They're supporting a man who went to prison for nearly collapsing a grooming case, a gang grooming case. These are people who are trying to get some kind of vicarious thrill from street violence that people like Tommy Robinson promote.
We were sitting there thinking, oh, the justice system might be working. We looked at this judge and we actually hoped that we had a just judge. We actually hoped that we had someone who's going to make a fair decision. Now, obviously, the reality is the judge has made his decision and that's between him and his conscience. But this is not justice, Paul. And like I said yesterday, we have three-tier justice. We have the two-tier Keir's justice where the preferred demographic and everybody else gets priority and gets looked after. Then we have the justice for the Brits, and then we have justice for Tommy Robinson. It's a three-tier justice system.
I want you to feel sorry for me. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy of it all. It's 2025, and what amounts to mental torture is being inflicted on a journalist because he made a film. They don't have to do this. I should be in an open prison. And if they're saying, if their excuse is they brought me here and they put me in isolation, I haven't asked them to isolate me. So they put me in isolation because their excuse is I'll get hurt in the prison system. Well, if that was the case, they should still give me the same rights as a decat prisoner. If a decat prisoner is only meant to be staying in prison at night and he's meant to go to work, that's what I should be doing. Least of all for making a film. Like the judge is given the power to give 2 years prison sentence for contempt of court without a jury. I've never had a jury, ever. So a 2-year prison sentence, but he wouldn't be given that if it was 2 years of solitary confinement.
Tommy Robinson has lost a High Court bid this morning to challenge his segregation in prison over fears he'd be killed by another inmate. He was moved to a closed wing at Woodhill after intelligence suggested a prisoner serving life there was planning to attack him. His lawyers argued his isolation breaches human rights and is harming his mental health. But the court heard that he enjoys various privileges behind bars and has no arguable claim. Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, is serving 18 months in prison for breaching a court injunction.
And as that continues, not just that, I now have the Attorney General has now invoiced me. They sentenced me to 18 months, put me on solitary confinement, and now they've charged me £81,000 that they want me to pay by the 7th of January. Well, guess what? I face another contempt of court case. So we're talking about terrorism. This is financial terrorism. The weaponisation of a judiciary to destroy dissident voices. That's exactly what it is. If this was happening in North Korea, China or Russia, every politician in our country would be screaming about this. But not a word. Not one single politician has mentioned this. No, if you have a film which is an expose of the corrupt judiciary, which is the most watched documentary Britain's ever seen, and not one MP spoke about it, or mainstream journalists, not even GB News. None of them have spoke about it.
Those who are cheerleading Tommy Robinson, not interested in justice. They're supporting a man who went to prison for nearly collapsing a grooming case, a gang grooming case. These are people who are trying to get some kind of vicarious thrill from street violence that people like Tommy Robinson promote. And those attacking Jess Phillips, who I'm proud to call a colleague and a friend, not protecting victims. Jess Phillips has done 1,000 times more than they've even...
Just think where we would be if it wasn't for Elon Musk. Where would this country be? Donald Trump, I don't believe, would have been elected. Where would we all be? We'd all still be under censorship. Still, people wouldn't know the truth. There is a mass awakening happening out there, and they can't stop it. So long as there's free speech. Free speech is the most important thing. Free speech is the hill I will die on. I played this film. I made that film available to the public. Not because they were gagging me, because they were gagging you.
There have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
So, now you've seen it. You've seen the cold, calculated reality of what's happening behind the closed doors of Britain's so-called justice system. Tommy Robinson isn't just a man in a prison cell, he's a symbol. A symbol of what happens when you dare to speak out against the establishment. And now you have to ask yourself, is this the country you thought you lived in? Because if a British citizen can be locked away, isolated, punished, not for violence, not for theft, not for corruption, but for speaking, then none of us are safe. What we just witnessed is more than an attack on Tommy Robinson. It's an attack on you. On your right to know. Your right to question. Your right to speak. And who stands behind this twisted version of justice? None other than Keir Starmer, a man who once ran the Crown Prosecution Service and now leads the country with a velvet glove and an iron fist. Let's not mince words, Starmer knows exactly what he's doing. This is political theatre at its most dangerous. Robinson has been turned into an example, a warning to every other Brit who dares to ask the wrong questions, film the wrong story, or expose the wrong truth. Why else is he being kept in isolation like a threat to national security? Why else has he been denied the rights other prisoners take for granted? Why is a man, who made a film, being treated like a terrorist? The answer is obvious, because the system fears him. They don't fear his fists, they fear his voice. They fear what he represents, the awakening of a people who've had enough of being lied to, mocked, ignored. People like you. People who are finally beginning to realize that democracy in Britain is an illusion when it doesn't serve the narrative. And yet, look how far they've gone. 18 months in prison. Isolation. Daily monitoring. Threats on his life. A £81,000 fine. All for what? For daring to challenge the elite? For showing you a version of Britain the BBC won't touch? For telling the stories politicians would rather bury? And still, Tommy hasn't stopped. He hasn't begged. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't compromised. Because he stands for something. And deep down, that's why they hate him. Meanwhile, let's take a good hard look at those in power. Keir Starmer, a man who presided over a CPS that turned a blind eye to grooming gang scandals. A man who now preaches justice while his government orchestrates the slow, silent destruction of political dissidents. Where was Starmer when whistleblowers were threatened? Where was Starmer when mainstream journalists refused to cover the documentary that broke records online? Where was Starmer when citizens flooded the streets demanding answers? Nowhere. Because Keir Starmer doesn't want justice, he wants control. And if they can silence Tommy, they can silence you. This isn't just about the man in the cell. It's about the bigger picture. It's about the quiet erosion of freedom in a country that once prided itself on liberty. It's about how fear is used to keep people compliant. About how public opinion is manipulated by headlines and hashtags while truth-tellers are destroyed. Ask yourself, would a murderer be treated this way? Would a gang leader be this isolated? Would a fraudster be this closely monitored? No. Because this isn't about crime. This is about power. But there's one thing they didn't count on, you. People are waking up. They are questioning. They're not swallowing the headlines anymore. Because for every lie printed, there's now a camera. A voice. A protest. A video like this one. And let's be clear, this battle is far from over. The establishment may have the courts, the media, the ministers, but we have something stronger. We have the numbers. We have the truth. We have the will to fight back. And we've had enough of being told to shut up and sit down. You've seen the footage. You know the facts. And now, you have a choice. You can pretend it's not your problem. Or you can raise your voice. Speak out. Share this video. Talk to your neighbors. Write to your MP, stand up for what's right. Because silence is no longer an option. Tommy Robinson's story is Britain's story, and what happens next is up to us. Are you with him? Or are you with the ones who want him erased? Let them know we are watching. Let them know we will not forget. And let them know, the fight for free speech has only just begun.